Ready. Play.
And when she plays like this, I'm not sure who's going to beat her. Fourth round exit here in Melbourne last year was disappointing for her. 2 match points, serves out wide. Kenin's return is cross court, but it misses. And Iga Świątek is able to outlast Sofia Kenin to put away another match victory. 7 straight now for Świątek, going back to that September match in Japan, the last time she lost. And Świątek is moving on to the second round here in Melbourne. It is a hard-fought 7-6, 6-2 victory for the world's number 1 player, Iga Świątek, defeating 2020 Australian Open champion Sofia Kenin. It's a tough loss for Kenin, but hopefully she can keep getting into form here. She played a good set and a half, and then it got away from her late.
Good. I just had to do a little jiggery pokery there. I don't know if that's an expression you're familiar with in the US. There was one expression earlier. What was it? Dog's dinner that you've had to learn and also will cite. I love the way you were like, I have no idea what that means. And then the explanation from Jake was unbelievable because the way you repeated it, I was like, yep, that's exactly what it means. And yes, I can't even remember which player it was he was talking about. I think it was Safiullin who was making a dog's dinner of a particular match. But listen, Matthew, wonderful commentary. I thought it was a very entertaining match. I can see a couple of patient guys backstage who I'll be bringing forward any moment. But I just want to say a big thanks to you again, Matthew. Probably, it could have been an epic one if Sofia had won that first set. I think it was kind of essential. But was still excellent to have your dulcet tones on our channel once more.
Well, thank you as always. I hope to join again as this tournament goes on, if you'll have me, of course.
Matthew.
And of course, if the schedules align. But this is always a lot of fun. Love getting to call tennis. Hope everyone else enjoys it.
If this is your time slot, Matthew, I mean, it works very well. So in the coming days, if you see a match, at I guess starting at 7, 8 o'clock Eastern time, either 7 o'clock on one of the sort of outer courts, or if you see an 8 p.m. Eastern time one on Rod Laver, and you say, I would love to call that match, it's yours. Simple as that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll certainly be in touch. But thank you again, as always. Thanks for everyone that kept me entertained in the comment section. You've got a great following here. A lot of fun people commenting. And again, hope they enjoyed it. Hope I didn't get on anyone's nerves, to say the least.
Wonderful. Thanks, Matthew. You certainly didn't get on my nerves, and you're welcome back anytime. So take care.
Yes, thank you. You too.
As Matthew sails off into the sunset, we have some super subs, a little bit like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, although I don't know if either of my two guests know who Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is. Owen, you're on mute, by the way, Owen. Do you know who Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is?
Unfortunately, no. Sorry.
Andre?
Sorry, what's the question?
Do you know? Are you familiar with the name Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Nope.
We'll move on. That's that one done. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, tick. That was the first thing on my list. We'll move on. Listen, let's get to this particular encounter. Owen, was it all about that tiebreak in the end?
That's a good question, because the start of the second set was pretty tight as well. I missed part of it, but I know Kenin had some breakback points at 2-3. So I feel like it didn't really get away from her until the back half of the second set. I would lean more towards she came out with a great game plan, executed it very well for a set plus. It's just too hard to do that over 2 sets or 3 sets.
Yes, absolutely. Andre, what are your thoughts post-match?
I think it's a classic Iga Świątek match where she faces somebody who was able to, keep up with her to an extent. Reminds me a bit of when Andreescu pushed her in Rome. It was a similar score line. It's probably 7-6, 6-1, I think, at the end. I don't think it came down to a specific point. I think Świątek was just better, and then Kenin just couldn't keep up. I think that was just about it. Like, Kenin's game is heavily dependent on her timing. She started misfiring a bit, got a little frustrated, and I guess that's just the way it goes. Like, you guys just in such a form that is hard to, just keep up with the level that you need to play to beat her. So, I was thinking to myself, I even messaged in a private texting on Twitter, just saying like, man, I'm underestimated a lot, like him, and I thought maybe she can keep up this game. It could get messy, but at the end, just couldn't keep up. I don't think it was a key moment or specific timing that happened, but it was just Iga Świątek being Iga Świątek at the end.
I think maybe me framing that question to almost maybe a little too simplistic. It was just the spontaneous thought that came into my mind, Owen. But there were moments in the first set. I mean, she's serving for the first set before she knows that she's love 40 down. Yeah. She's. I'm just trying to remember the momentums because actually I went out to get a takeaway for the first 4 games, and I think I came back and it was 3-1 Kenin, and I was like, oh, okay. Didn't see that one coming. Iga then breaks back, and I did see that coming. But what I didn't see coming was another break for Kenin. Should maybe future opponents, I get Andre's optimism regarding Iga, but maybe future opponents might go, well, she's not bagling everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I think it's a really hard part about being number one is like the blueprint on how to beat you is very highly in demand, right? Like everyone's working on that. Yeah. And so it's very hard, but it's not really a secret how you beat Iga. You want to rush her. You want to hit really hard returns, first and second serve, and you want to rush her forehand and keep her on the back foot. And Kenin has a game that is very capable of doing those things. And so when she broke, and when Iga was serving at 1-3 and Kenin was kind of piling on the pressure, there was a moment early on where I was sort of like, oh crap, Iga, like you could go down a double break here, and then things could get really hairy. But all the credit to her, toughed out a deuce hold, broke back, broke to keep herself in the set. But I mean, yeah, this is maybe getting a little too general, but I don't have her winning this tournament because I think she's going to run into players who can basically do what Kenin did, but with even more pace, like an Ostapenko or a Rybakina. And I have trouble seeing Świątek beating one or both of them.
Yes, and she probably or may well have to beat both of them because I think Arena's route to the final is not too bad, and Iga's is hazardous, including today. I mean, I didn't probably expect it to be quite as close, but once the first set panned out the way it was, I was like, wow, this route is just getting harder. And if it's Danielle Collins or Angie Kerber, of course, she beat Angie Kerber at the United Cup recently, but Angie will have a couple more matches under her belt. Whatever. I don't expect Angie to be overwhelmed by the occasion like some people might be against Iga at the moment. I'm not predicting an Angie Kerber win or a Danielle Collins win for that matter, but Danielle Collins in Australia, we know how that can work out sometimes. And Danielle Collins has a ceiling, which we haven't seen for about 2 years, by the way. But she has a ceiling, which is, Ostapenko-esque. And we know how Ostapenko works out. And by the way, Ostapenko is also in that path. And finally, Rybakina is also in that path. Now, a lot of tennis to happen before then, but I get where you're coming from, Owen. Andre, what about Kenin? What positives can she take from today?
I mean, the fact that she went toe-to-toe with Świątek is pretty good. I think her timing's still there. I think her serve is underrated. I think it's pretty solid. Like, if you can go with like a streak of serves where she gets like pinpoint accuracy. I think she's a good spot server, despite not looking at the ball as she tosses it.
Yeah, I know.
But I think I think there's plenty of positives when you play a good match against a player that is red hot like Świątek. So term that she's won before is obviously always going to be a tough one. Yeah, I think positives is just like seeing like, hey, I played a really good game. There were opportunities that she's missed. But yeah, I think that just looking at the moments where she could have taken advantage of whatever advantage that she had are going to be the main things to work on. Not to let that lead slide so many times. I think, as Owen was saying, like I think a player who's going to be more capable of taking advantage of those leads is not going to let Świątek off the hook as easily. So I think for Kenin, it's just about taking whatever good parts of her game that she did well today. I'm particularly fond of her timing and just her accuracy on her ground strokes. I think those things are amazing. And just like saying like this is good, and just trying to like, okay, now that you have when you build that advantage, just make sure that you can take that and move forward. I think that's what's going to be the positive for her is essentially just that she played well.
Couple of things, Owen. One is something that I'm showing on the screen, obviously, right now, is you talking about the point Iga just played to get to deuce 2-3 was defensive perfection. Tell us about Iga's defense in that moment, but perhaps more generally. And also the serve. It's something that's been spoken about a lot in the last few months. If there's anything you can add to that sort of debate.
Sure. So yeah, the point I'm talking about in that tweet, Kenin had game point for 4-2, and she had Iga on the run, and Iga's defending, and then she slides into this backhand that lands super deep right on the baseline. Kenin has to kind of bunt it back, and then Iga immediately just slashes this forehand winner that was, untouchable, insanely aggressive. It was just an amazing shot, and after Kenin double faulted twice, I think maybe that's something I would critique about her performance. You had quite a few double faults on big points. When she gets rattled, you can really see it in her game immediately. So yeah, I mean, I think Iga is just a phenomenal mover and really, really good at sliding. I would say that Coco is faster. And probably plays better like vertical defense, if that makes any sense. Like she's better at running shots down, but I think Iga is better at cutting them off. And then I'm sorry, what was your second question?
The serve.
Yes, the serve. Yeah, I think the serve is still Świątek's biggest weakness. I don't think she aims close enough to the lines on the first serve. And so when you have a big point, maybe she's break point down. I think a lot of the time I'll see her hit a first serve down the middle-ish, and players can attack that. And I think that's not what you want. Of course, you'd rather not have to hit a second serve, but I'd kind of prefer to see her really try to win the point with that first serve. And then if she misses, fall back on the second serve and trust her defense. But you don't necessarily want to have to trust your defense behind your first serve. This is a bit of a tangent, but I remember in the 2011 US Open final between Djokovic and Nadal, quick plug, writing a book about that rivalry. But
Australian Open 2012?
No, US Open 2011.
Oh, sorry.
It was so it was windy that day, but Nadal was spinning in like all of his first serves, and so he got essentially 0 free points off of it. And then Djokovic broke him 11 times and beat him in 4 sets. So and sometimes I see Iga doing something similar. Like she doesn't go for it on that first serve, and I think she's going to have to get through these potential tricky opponents we talked about.
Okay, fair enough. What are your thoughts on Iga and the serve and anything else we've just spoken about, Andre?
Serve. It's definitely the part that she try to make adjustments. It's not elite level. I think that's one part that if she wants to be similar as to Rafa Nadal in every part of her game, she's going to have to find a way to like use it with more strategical intent, because she's not going to fire aces. She's not going to like blow opponents off the court. So I don't know. I think she's still young. She has the opportunities to try to take on Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic in that department, try to spot serve a bit better and not rely solely on just her defense to defend that part of her game. I think it's probably one of the parts of her game that's actually mostly holding her back on fast surfaces like Australian Open and Wimbledon mostly, I would say. I think it's that lack of ability to have something to rely on when things are going a little bit awry, or just to hold serve, because it is a very important part of the game on fast courts especially. Say on clay, like you could say break, has almost the same value, but on fast court, you absolutely have to break, because you gotta, again, like bringing back those players who we are thinking are going to win the tournament, Sabalenka or Rybakina, or a player who we think is going to take her out, Ostapenko. Those are players that can hold serve. And again, if she lost serve against Kenin like twice or 3 times today or something like that, she was able to go back, but a player with a better serve would be able to just like take that advantage and hold on to it. So Iga Świątek serve will need to improve, I guess, career-wise. Who knows? Maybe for this tournament is going to be enough, but she's going to have to work very hard to hold it. So yeah, I think the service is a moment of the game where she is most vulnerable, I'd say, almost.
I'd love to have a. I mean, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, Owen. So bear with me on this one. I could be way off, but I'd love to have a quick look at Iga's fast-slow surface comparison, because this is just off the top of my head. I'd like to know. We don't need to do it now, and we'll just let people make comments below this video when we put it out there as well. Because although we're live right now, I'll probably chop this into a shortened version. But I'm just thinking fast surface, slow surface. I'm thinking Indian Wells is traditionally slow. Miami's traditionally fast. She's won both in the same year. I don't know what her route to the final was in those 2 tournaments, but I do recall her getting to the semis in Indian Wells a year later and not playing Miami a year later. And I'm talking sort of post-2020 Iga as well. On top of that, you mentioned a couple of those tournaments there, Andre. I think Australian Open is generally a fast surface one, and interrupt and correct me if I'm wrong. US Open tends to be a bit slower. Which is her more successful slam? Well, until now, it has been the US Open. Obviously, she's won once there, and she's not made a final yet in Australia. And Wimbledon, of course, grass court. We know the difficulties she has there. But then finally, I also think of, off the top of my head, I think Madrid. Now, I'm not saying Madrid is necessarily fast clay, but it's certainly a server's paradise if you're going to get one on a clay surface. Hence Sabalenka's success there on 2 occasions. And it's one of the few clay court tournaments off the top of my head that I can think of that Iga hasn't won. I think I saw a list of tournaments she's played at least twice, and that was there. And it's sort of, again, there's a little Rafa Nadal thing there, Andre, in that he doesn't sort of have a lot of success in Madrid. So, yeah, fast court, slow court. Am I onto something here, Owen? It's probably something, but when I say I'm onto something, I don't think I'm Columbo here or something that I'm uncovering something that people haven't already discussed before, Owen.
No, I think it's a legit point. I mean, I think she is, the word I would use is more vulnerable on faster courts. I think she can absolutely still win on them. Like she still goes deep at this tournament, but I think on clay, she's, especially slower clay, she's the favorite against everyone. And on a court like the ones at the Australian Open, I wouldn't have her as a favorite against a Rybakina or an Ostapenko, or maybe even not against Sabalenka, depending on the day. And that's because I think these players, like with this immense power, it just becomes slightly easier for them to rush her. The defense does a little bit less on a faster court. It's helpful to have a powerful serve that can get you more free points, which she doesn't have. So I think the faster courts sort of play to her own weaknesses and the strengths of some of her biggest rivals.
Cool. Andre, anything else you want to add, particularly regarding that final point?
I think that she would have benefited a lot more of the game if she was lefty as well. So unfortunately she isn't, so she has to work with what she's got. So. Indeed. And she's done pretty well so far, #1 in the world. So
she's doing okay. I mean, listen, by the way, we're probably, this is how it is when you're world #1 and all the rest of it, and a multiple Grand Slam winner. We sort of, you win 7-6, 6-2 in the first round, but you get broken a few times. We go, oh. But yeah, she could easily be 12 days from now lifting that trophy and just augmenting and cementing what I think is very quickly becoming a legendary status within the sport. I mean, what is the cutoff point? Maybe she needs to add a grass court slam or something like this, but she's certainly adding to her resume. Am I going a bit too big? Is she a legend of the sport already, Owen?
I just had the thought that I think a lot of people would say that she isn't yet, but I just had the thought that I think we kind of already hold her to that standard, because we're talking about all these things that she needs to improve. And here she is already with 4 majors and has spent a ton of time, like more time at number one in the world than any active WTA player, right? So I think if she does improve those things, the sky is the limit. She could win a crazy number like 15, and if she doesn't, she's certain to win at least a couple more with the game she has right now. Like, she is the best player in the world. So I mean, I feel like if she retired now, we would still say in 5 or 10 years, like, oh, remember that streak she went on in 2022? Like, that was freaking crazy. So maybe legend is stretching it just a little bit, because we usually reserve that for, Serena, Venus, big three. But I feel like she's easily on that path, and maybe not the path to become one of the GOATs, but into that very first tier of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look. She's, I think she's 10th on the list already in her career for weeks at number one. But she'll soon I think she'll overtake Lindsay Davenport at some point this year. She's not too far behind the American right now. So, Ash Barty then in 7th place, 121 weeks. And so, yeah, I guess what is your definition of legendary status? You might say winning, across the 3 surfaces might be necessary, and therefore we put Andre Agassi in that category. But maybe if we go with that thing, we don't put Boris Becker or perhaps Stefan Edberg in that category. I don't think Edberg won a French. But I think if you win plenty of others, in general, I think if you're winning sort of 5+, yeah, I don't know, you're close to it. Andre, I'll give you the final word. You can talk about whether I'm being a bit premature on already putting her at legendary status, or what you think she needs to do to sort of achieve that.
I don't know. I think legend is under discussed as a term as opposed to GOAT. This is definitely what she isn't. But a legend is a more broad term.
It's someone we look back on. I think that's why I've you probably, but still, even though we look back on it and we go, and I like what Owen said about that undefeated period, because actually she might win 4 slams, 8 slams, 6 slams, or whatever, if she never goes on another similar run. But even if she does do a similar run, which, by the way, who knows, could continue. And if she wins the Australian Open, she'll probably be on about 25 unbeaten. And that will have encompassed both the Grand Slam and, of course, the WTA Tour Finals. I mean, she's ticking off a lot of the criteria, Andre.
Yeah. I think that you should look at as a legend, like one of the players that definitely has left her mark. And there are so many others that did less than she did. And yet, I think even like, say, let's put in like a Gustavo Kirten on the equation, like who's had like a season of crazy stuff, like back in 2000, also won a Grand Slam, ranked 67 in the world, I believe, at the time. So some people would consider him a clay legend. So, and he has done far less than Świątek has done so far in her career. So I think she is already a legend in the sport. And I guess, like Owen said, like she's only growing it at this point. She's just growing it to make her legend bigger. Where is this legend going to end up in the end? Like, I guess it's time to tell. Time will tell, actually.
Yes, indeed.
Time is a good kind of legend.
Time is telling on us all, I think. I just want to say a big thanks to both you, Andre, and Owen, for joining us spontaneously at the end of that match.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you guys.